Welcome to Ask Dr. Change. I'm Dr. Linda Ackerman Anderson. I'm happy to have you join me today to explore how to seriously uplevel your leadership and consulting to transformational changes, all through conscious change leadership. Welcome to the next episode of the Changed Leaders Roadmap Methodology series. Now, today I'm talking about phase 3, which is assess the situation to determine design requirements. Every change model has an assessment phase, an analysis phase. They all look mostly at the same kinds of things. What about in the organization is surfacing the need for this project? This particular phase and activity has some very unique pieces to it that I want to explain, particularly generating design requirements. But first, it's really important to understand what about the organization needs to change, what about the organization can stay the same, and what about the organization do we need to start brand new? That's the orientation. And from all of that, we generate requirements for the design of the best, the optimal solution that the project will implement. The activity of phase 3 is the same name, basically, assess the situation to determine design requirements. What's really important here is getting clear on the process and the people to deliver on the 3 major tasks. But the first task of this activity is to design that process, to determine your design requirements. And so, again, with the 3 tasks, which I'm about to go over for you, how will you do this? Who will do it? What's the timing? What's the sequence? And most importantly, how will you interpret the data from these 3 tasks into actual design requirements? Now, by design requirements, I'm talking about the criteria, the conditions, the factors that the ideal or preferred solution for the project must meet. And so when we have this kind of criteria, it helps profoundly reduce the kind of political dynamics where I like this solution, I like that solution, this one serves me better, that one serves me worse. It really evaporates that if we have criteria from which to evaluate the various scenarios to know which will serve the organization best and meet the project's requirements. Now, design requirements might be organizational requirements, like keep the structure the way it is, or use the technology we now have in place. Those are both content requirements. It might be cultural requirements, ensure we have cross-boundary collaboration and communication in how we're setting up the new organization. You might have mindset requirements. We need to think in the shoes of the customer, or customer comes first. Or might be behavioral requirements. We absolutely need to communicate in a timely fashion, or we will fulfill requirements for accountability. Any of these kinds of requirements might show up on your roster of design requirements. The other piece of this that I want to highlight is we identify what we call boundary conditions. Boundary conditions are givens, lines in the sand, do not do this, or you must do this. Boundary conditions are really important and typically are, if you haven't thought about it consciously in advance, typically are the things we stumble into, the brick walls we stumble into and discover along the way. And having had that experience, we now build in what are the boundary conditions? And that may in fact be, don't touch the structure. It may in fact be, this is the budget we have for this, don't go over it. They're asking the senior leaders, the executive team, the change leadership team, what their givens are, what their sandbox says. It's this, it's not that. It's really important in advance of shaping your design requirements. So all of that could be built into your process, this first task of designing how you will generate design requirements. The next task is the big one and is the most common one. Assess relevant aspects of the organization and its culture. Again, thinking four quadrants. And so in this case, we're doing an assessment of the organization to learn, given the context of the project and our desired outcomes, what about the operations or the workings of the organization already support the future state we're envisioning and need to stay the same? What about the organization is blocking our ability? It needs to be dismantled. We can't do it this way any longer. We need to take it out. And what about the organization needs to be developed and embedded that we've never done before? New work, new technology, new ways of operating. What's the new? And all three of those then generate critical design requirements for the new state. The next task is to benchmark other organizations for their best practices. Now, if other organizations have done the same kind of project, and so we'd need people that are understanding what else is happening out there in our colleague organizations, even our competitor organizations out there, what might they have learned that we can learn from? This isn't always done, but when it is, it's very insightful for us gleaning value from the learnings from other people who have done the same kind of thing. And so it might be a series of travels, of meetings with other organizations, the folks that have either sponsored or delivered on the similar kinds of projects, what their future state looked like or their desired state, what they did in terms of their process, how they communicated, how they engaged, what they learned, and what they would do differently. Any of that might help influence the roster of design requirements. The next and third activity or task of this activity is to clarify customer or end user requirements. Now, this is often a challenging one when we bring in external consultants who are the experts. They think they know what's needed. And frequently, or too often from our standpoint, they don't bother asking the folks who are in the organization who actually have to live with that future state. So the task of going out to the end users and asking them in the context of making the project, of doing the project, what already is working for you, what's blocking or inhibiting your ability to be successful, and what might we do that we've never done before. So getting end user inputs is really critical. We have story after story after story where end users were never consulted in advance of the design of the solution. And then the solution comes out and doesn't fit their needs, doesn't fit their reality, doesn't fit their skills, and we have disaster. We've had that with embedding of electronic health records, medical records in the healthcare system. We've had it with trying to assess the southern border for immigration requirements, how to monitor that security. We have it in insurance. We have it in utilities. Lots of stories about not having asked the end users what they need. So that too is a really critical piece to add to your roster of design requirements. And the last task of this activity is to actually write a statement of design requirements that can be given to or is generated by the project team that, or the part of the team that is doing the design of the solution. You may have a separate design team, but if whoever is doing the design of the solution is working off of this set of requirements, what are we keeping the same? What's blocking that needs to be dismantled? And what are we generating brand new that we'll need to train for? All three are a part of your roster of design requirements and are very important guidance for the folks coming up with the optimal solution. So assessment is critical. We need to plan for it. We need to get the right people to do it. And we need to, it's a great opportunity for engaging your stakeholders in constructive ways and listening to them. One of my favorite questions is of stakeholders is, what do you see that we don't see, that the leaders don't see, that you think is really important here? That's a profound question to ask and really generates excitement, investment, and positive contribution. And yes, you may need to get through some belly aching about, well, they don't do this or they don't do that. However, looking for the constructive input to shape design requirements or identify boundary conditions from your user standpoint, absolutely critical to this phase being successful in terms of shaping the ideal outcome for your project. So I hope this has helped expand how you do assessments and how you prepare for the design phase for your project, which is coming next. I'll see you next time. Thanks for spending some time with me today. I hope you gained some valuable insights for your work. Please send me your questions and challenges by going to askdrchange.com.